Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an extraordinary episode of Invincible Innovation. I'm your host, Mazor Kario, product design and AI expert. And in this episode today, we have a special guest who is an AI consultant and lecturer. He will share his valuable insight on how companies can leverage AI to get ahead of the game. We will discuss the latest trends in AI, the business advantages of AI, and more. Stay tuned for an informative and engaging conversation. Yeah, now we have Uri. How
Hey,
are
how
you?
are you?
So happy to see you here. Uri Eliabayev, AI consultant and lecturer. And I'm so happy to see you here. I know that you're very active and everybody knows your name in Israel here. We're
Mm-hmm.
live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and you're so
Hi,
invited to join
everyone.
the discussion. Yeah. And ask questions. So, whatever you want, we're here to hear from you. Now we can start.
Yeah.
So I know that you're an AI consultant for many companies. What are some common challenges that companies face when they are implementing AI?
Actually, the funny thing is not in the technology perspective, because what I see in the majority of the time, people are starting to think, okay, there is a new technology, ChatGPT, AI, some specific things in AI, and then they start to think, okay, what we can do with this technology. But it's supposed to be on the other side, because you need to understand what is the business problem you're trying to solve. And then you should tackle it with the proper or the right AI tool for you. And I can even tell you that sometimes AI and machine learning is not the solution. Sometimes I need to break the heart of my clients and tell them, yeah, they are deeply sorry for that. But sometimes I need to tell them, you know what? You don't need this kind of solution, because you should use maybe a simple algorithm, or even just give it to a lot of human to do that. It will be much easier for you with less problems. So the difficult challenges is to understand what is actually you're trying to solve, and if AI could be relevant for you. And this is
Yeah.
something many companies struggle with.
Yeah, I think it's like a buzzwords everybody's using, and they say, okay, everything's going to be much better when they have this autonomous solution that will do
Yeah.
everything. But there are a certain limits or demands or requirements in order to have a successful AI solution. So, what do they lack usually? Let's say that they know it's the right solution, and maybe it is. So, what do they need to know?
So basically, they need to understand where this AI technology is going to be at their organization, or on, and part of what, let's say, ecosystem it should be built on. Because as I say, the majority of the time in every project, even the biggest AI project in the world, the AI part could be 20, 30% of the entire project. And sometimes people, they don't realize they need to tackle other perspective of it. For example, the engineering, how to get all these data pipelines to work together, or even the compute power. You want to understand how you can train those models. You need to also understand this angle of this entire project. And last but not least, and this is the most important thing, you need to understand how you can explain the users what the AI is doing for them. Because I've seen that countless times. Many companies develop AI algorithms, and let's say they work 100%. They're accurate, they are very, very precise. The thing is that they are not putting enough effort on how to explain it, and how to let the user understand UX wise what is actually happening here. And sometimes you see that companies developing algorithms that nobody use. Not because this is not good, not because they're not accurate, because the user do not know how to engage. They not trust. They have their own guts that tell them otherwise. So this is something that many companies are forgetting. Many companies are not dealing because it's not sexy. It's easier to speak with the technical guys and try to solve things with more compute power. And this is something that I think many companies should address, and they should focus in on that.
Could you give us an example of a good AI solution that really doesn't work for the users?
I give you an example that I spoke with some of my clients several weeks ago. They've developed a tool that allow technician who come to visit, who pay a visit at the customer, to detect if one part of the entire machine, no matter what is going to malfunction in the future. It's going to stop working, okay? And they develop a system that can detect it several weeks ago, and when the technician is coming to the client, it will tell him, hey, there is a alert, you should change it. But then they realize that the technical people are not doing that. Even though the algorithm was developed and it's accurate, it's going to save money for the organization and many other elements. And then I started to speak with them. Why do you think it's going in that way? Why? And then they realize that there are many, let's say, things you need to take care of that are not only the algorithm. Because let's say maybe this is not, there's no alignment of interest with the technical man. Maybe he wants to get another visit. Maybe the alerts only pops up when at the customer. He doesn't want to go back to the car and just give it. So there are main elements in which you can understand that the algorithm is not standalone. You need to understand the entire ecosystem. This is why I said ecosystem, not a program, not a product, because you need to understand, okay, this solution, what is going to solve? And who is going to hurt? And who maybe not be satisfied for that. So this is like a small, very simple example,
Yeah.
but this is a
Yeah, I
great
totally
because
understand.
everyone can relate to that.
Yeah, of course. I think it's like many years back, I worked with a company who's doing like car fleet management,
Mhm.
and they wanted to trace all the drivers and see if they go on time, if they get to all the stores that they need to deliver on time.
Okay.
It was like this huge solution for what they had. Like sometimes the
Mhm.
drivers would go, to do their own errands or
Mhm.
whatever, and the drivers hated the fact that they could be spied
And
on.
monetize.
Nobody,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, nobody wants it.
Uh,
And they start developing it, and they saw so much resistance from their actually
mhm.
employee that they stopped doing that. and
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
like it doesn't work because people need to be engaging with it and give it some details and work with it. And sometimes they don't have any other choice, but sometimes they do. They could just leave the car and they trace the car, but they don't trace themselves, right? So
This is
they
the
could
thing.
find
Humans will
solutions.
always find solution to trick the machines. Always, always. There was a lot of examples with Uber drivers that they managed to put their cell phone in one place in order to get all the calls for. So there are tons of examples that people manage to just hack those systems in a right way, in a psychology way, right? Not hacking actually
Yeah,
hacking
yeah, sure.
system. And this is something that many companies forget because no one is responsible for that because if you're doing all the pieces by yourself, the product, the UX, everyone can do it by their own. It could be working, it could working fine, but when
Sure.
you take everything and tie it up together, then you realize that something here is not working.
Yeah. So first, I'm very happy that you said, I come from product and design, and always I feel that I need to justify why it's so important to talk to users, to do user research, to understand the real needs. And people would
Especially in
always,
AI, because this is not determined. You can get different answers. Sometimes you cannot explain the answer. So, especially in AI, you need to speak with the users, with the clients, and try to understand what they actually want to do.
yeah, I think it is so important. Like I'm currently building a course launching AI products,
Mhm.
and one of the lessons is a UX for AI. And I always tell them, like, it sounds like the last thing you need to do because most people start with the technology and okay, how do we get the data done? How do we manage the
Yeah.
algorithm? All of training. That's what they think about. But in the end, somebody needs to use it and to get lots of benefits from it and want to use it. And I think it's like the last thing that they think about. There's someone in innovation in AT R&D says, okay, this is what we need, taking it from the technology, and only in the end they think, why do we need it? What's the use case?
And there are tons of examples. I can give you a recent example. I'll give you two examples. The first one, if you ever use an iPhone or Android, no matter what, you have in your keyboard, you can translate what you say, then see it written down, right? So you can see while you're speaking, you can see the transcription is being written as you speak, right? And you ask yourself, for what reason? You don't actually need it in order to make it done. But Google and other companies have added it to add more confidence to the entire process. for the entire thing that you are doing, to make it more human-like, to make it feel that the algorithm managed to understand us and not to understand it only at the end when you see there is a problem. And you can see this the same, let's say, philosophy in ChatGPT versus Bard, the solution of Google, Bard, the competitor of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
ChatGPT, when you're asking something in return, you see it's actually typing. It's take
Yeah.
time,
Yeah. It's
typing,
like word
but
after word.
yeah, in Bard, it suddenly appears. Just boom, a bulk of a
Yeah.
paragraph or two. And this is also something that many people, they're not thinking about that, but each perspective, each strategy has its own, let's say, pros and cons, but you need to have that in your mind because your user will interact with you with the same narrative that you are trying to build. For example, if you're ChatGPT and you actually see it's typing, you say, it's more human-like, it's more something that I can relate. But Bard, you just get the dump of the data. Maybe it's more like a Google search, right? And Google search just get the entire page with all the results. So this is super
Yeah.
fascinating discussions, but unfortunately, no one, people barely do that kind of discussions.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. So I'm very surprised that you said, I thought that you would tell me the common challenges would be data, the amount of data, the data is not organized, where it's placed.
Yeah, but this is technical
It's
stuff,
like,
and this is something that money can solve it. You can buy data, you can pay someone to label it. This is something that if you put enough effort, you'll be able to solve that. To
right.
some of course, if you need the data of something that is very rare, okay. But let's say, for example, if you have your own data and if you don't have, so pay someone to build a data lake for you. And if it's
Yeah.
not well organized, so pay someone to just label it or tag it. Or the thing is, if you have something, a problem that you can pay for it, so it's not really a problem, right? It's just you need to
Yeah.
understand if you want to pay for that or not. But the thing about UI and UX is people are not thinking about it. It's not a matter of money. And I can give you
Yeah.
another example. I'm not sure if it's okay to give examples, right? This,
Sure. Sure. I
so
would love to hear that.
another example, when HubSpot, I'm sure you're all familiar with HubSpot, was
Sure.
launching their own chatbot. At the beginning, it was like a raw, plain chat between people. And then they realized that people do not really know what they should ask for the chat GPT version of HubSpot. And then they added templates. And then in those templates, you could just choose from drop downs, and then you should select things that you want with a lot of clicks, and then you would get the final prompt. And then I ask myself, so why it's going like that? If you want me to click on buttons, so let me click off buttons and not just doing this kind of approach in order to force me to use a conversation instead of just clicking a button. This is something many people are forget. The main purpose of the product you are building is to get things done, not let people talk wherever you want them to talk. So this is another great example because you need to understand what your user want to do and not what do you think will be the fanciest way to do that.
Yeah, it reminds me there are many WhatsApp groups. I think that even we're both like parts of the
Yeah.
AI groups, right? And they have lots of groups talking about solutions for AI and so forth. And in the past, maybe you saw it. One asked about insurance AI, and they want to have generative AI talking with the customers for
Yep.
some kind of insurances. But actually, what they need is like a few dimensions. That I need this kind of insurance for this term, for this date. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to imagine what are the parts of information that I need to deliver to you. So,
Hmm.
in that aspect, generative AI could be really fancy, as you say, but it's not the right solution. You just need to have like four or three parameters and get them the
Yep.
answer. You don't need more than that.
And this is something I keep saying that there are only several handful use cases that let's say a raw conversational user interface is the best solution. And people sometimes forget that because you want to get things done. You don't want to type, you don't want to even speak, just want the fastest way to get whatever you want. And
Yeah.
people sometimes forget that. And I give you another example. Let's say you want to order a pizza. The majority of us enter our local pizza store, whatever, and then you have this famous pizza, and then you can drop add-on and write the topping and everything. But
Right.
imagine if you would say that you need to say out loud what you want. And the thing is, this is how an entrepreneur think that people should order a pizza. Or say, okay, my name is Uri. I would like one medium and large pizza with olives and make it with a thin crust, and people will speak by the book, and everything will be well organized, and the ChatGPT will fully understand what you want. But if you ever order a pizza online with your phone, sorry, this is not the way, because you're asking, okay, and then guys, what do you want in pizza? Oh, no, this kind of pizza. This is messy. And
Right.
people always ignoring the reality because people
Right.
are not educated to just say fluently and exactly what they want. This is how human interact. We just kind of a stream of our mind to this chatbot, this poor chatbot that should understand what we actually
Yeah.
want. So maybe the solution will be just to make this simple, graph and put the olive where you wish. And sometimes people need to also realize that this could be a solution, or maybe a hybrid one, but it's not necessarily only a conversation 100%.
Yeah, I totally agree. Another thing that you need to think about the investment you need to make in order to have the solution and the computational power in order to get the result. And it could be so much easier just to press these like
Yeah.
toppings and that's it.
And
That's all
also,
people
it's
need.
bulletproof because there is a defined scope of what
Right.
the user can actually do. And this is something I call the curse of knowledge. Sometimes users do not know what they want or what they can ask the chat, and sometimes they ask for things that maybe the chat doesn't support, or maybe they don't ask things because they think, oh, he might not support that, but he actually yes. So this is also a problem, and you need to find a hybrid solution
Right.
for.
Right, right. You need to find the best solution for the user's need, not the best technology, and then fund the user for it, for
Mhm.
sure. So, how can companies really leverage AI to improve customer experience and satisfaction? If we said, like, in many cases, it's not the case, so what is like a good use case for that?
It actually depends on what they're trying to solve, because I've been following many academical research, and this is important for me in order to confirm, because there's a lot of buzz right now. A lot of companies just releasing PR. We did that. We did that. Okay, but there is a recent research from MIT who actually um, managed to see what is the impact of ChatGPT on white collar jobs. It could be data analysis, it could be marketing, could be grant writing, could be copy, many, let's say, white collar positions. And the impact was very, very huge. I think it was improvement of 37%. And
Yeah, I
and
saw.
we are only at the beginning, let's say.
Yeah,
ChatGPT is less than a year, right? And there was also a research that was done in April that demonstrates that if you want to have ChatGPT as part of your customer service, the impact on someone that is at the beginning, let's say only 2 months at the company, if you give him a ChatGPT style tool, it will level up to someone that is 6 months in the organization.
wow.
So the onboarding process, or the upskilling of new employees is highly affected by ChatGPT. And actually, what they saw also, but if you have someone that, let's say, 6 months or more, the impact is not really that massive, because people are already controlling and understanding the full, let's say, how to answer customers and stuff like this. So to conclude, what I see from researchers, not PR companies who are releasing that, there is an improvement in productivity, and companies who are actually using that as part of the customer support, customer service, actually manage to save time. And I will tell you another thing. This is something very important. All big companies are now working to implement those kind of technologies to their own services. Could be Salesforce and HubSpot and Zendesk and everyone. And this is my biggest advice. Do not try to invent the wheel. There is no reason to go and develop it by your own, unless you have very, very specific and domain-oriented, let's say, niche, or you want to have your own IP out of it. But if you're using the most common tools, just wait until they're going to do that. And some of them already done that. Salesforce released their ancient GPT, and HubSpot, as I said, also released. And now Office, Excel, PowerPoint, and Word, all those also going to get some generative AI tools. So do not invent the wheel. Just wait until those companies will enter those features as part of their product.
Yeah. So what you're saying first is like there is a use case, but because it's so vast, probably a service provider or some kind of platform will develop it for you, and you could just use it as a customer instead
Yeah,
of
it
like
will be a feature. This is what I said before, because at every AI project, the AI part is like 20-30%. And if you want to build, and this is the thing, if you want to build let's say, a system that can help your customer service, but they're not going to use a plain chat GPT, right? You need to integrate it to their customer, to their CRM. And then
sure.
you need to create a button for them so that they can click. And then you'd add permissions because you don't want everyone to get, and et cetera, et cetera. And then you understand that you need to build a lot around of it. So if there are some low-hanging fruits, go do that, play that. Otherwise, this is my biggest advice. Just wait. The big companies will implement, and the majority of them are working on that. So don't waste your time and money. Just do that. Unless you have your own specific domain, specific niche, you want to get ahead of the curve, and then it's might justified, but the majority of the companies are not in that position.
Hmm, I see. It's surprising that the example you gave about customer satisfaction is enhancing the training of the support team and not something which is like the end customer is working with some kind of a bot or replacing this team instead of like just enhancing the training and not just saying, okay, we get rid of all these salespeople or support people.
No, I don't think that we should get rid of people so fast. But the thing is, there was also a famous tweet that a CEO of a company managed to fire, let's say, 80% of his customer support because he managed to use ChatGPT, and the response time went to zero, and the average time to solve a problem was from several, let's say, 20 minutes to 1 minute. And this is the thing, because the majority of the questions are the same questions. And if you are in that, let's say, area, so yeah, you might be able to do that on your own and develop something. It's not even developing, just use ChatGPT API, maybe to do some automation with some tools, and that's it. This is relatively, let's say, an easy solution. So yes, in that manner you can use that, but otherwise anything that much more complex than that, I think you should wait.
Yeah, I understand. So, what are some key skills that companies need to develop to have effective use of AI? So, I guess that in some cases they don't have
It's
the
a
right
big question.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. It depends. It depends on how they want to implement that, and this is the main key. When I consult companies and I help them to build a strategy, I'm working on a methodology that I have developed. It's contained several chapters, and the first one is talking about the technical solution. And then in that case, you need to understand if you are building something or you are buying something. And those kind of skills or key elements that you have mentioned depend on what your approach. If you're trying to develop it in-house, you need to understand that you have the right data that is well labeled, and you need to understand that the data is being, say, labeled by your employees. For example, if I'm now using a specific CRM, and the salesperson doesn't write notes at the end of each conversation, or doesn't label the right company, the right person, so no matter what AI forecast tool you're going to build, it won't working. So this is something that you need to just let it sync to the entire people at the organization. The other element is the compute power. If you want to train your own model, you need to understand. If you're doing on-prem, and then you need to find a space, you need to buy this hardware, you need to think about the electricity bill, even the heat. Those things generate a lot of heat. Or if you know, okay, I will buy more compute power in the cloud, and you to have people who understand in that field, or could be sure that you're not spending too much money on that. So this is on the, let's say, logistic part. And then last but not least, you need to understand that okay, you need to have your own talent, people who well known with the business problem and also the technical aspect of it. And this is only if you want to train it in-house. Other than that, you can just outsource it, and then you need strong managers who can actually understand how to run and manage AI projects, to will know to ask the right questions, because this is something very common in AI. No matter what, you can play with the numbers in order to make it like it was a great success. And this is something very, yeah,
You,
I've seen that countless times.
of course.
Because what is, let's say, 90% accuracy? This is vague. You can play with the number, you can play with the, let's say, the metrics that you are putting in your exam in order to be in this right accuracy level. And this is something very crucial. You said skills. This is the product manager should definitely understand how they manage an AI project and how you can actually understand if the AI is working or not. So this is
Yeah.
also important. And I think that in general, I think people should have the AI mindset. They should understand what the limitation, when it's working, when it's not, and then it will be much easier for them to actually run projects or run, let's say, features using AI.
Yeah. So what kind of information they need, or what kind of skills they need? Data scientists. They need someone who's coming from analyst, or what kind of who do they need?
This is a good question. It depends again what your strategy. If you are going to do it in-house, yes, you need a data scientist, data engineer. You need to have those kind of, let's say, people on your team. If you are going to just use on-the-shelf products, you can use software developers or software engineers who can actually take several APIs, tie them together, just create something new. Or, as I said, you can outsource it. And then you need some manager from your own perspective, maybe technical, but maybe a product that could actually run and understand what are those solutions that are developing for you. But
Yeah.
above all that, I think also, and this is something people are not speaking enough about, the management need to do this kind of shift. I'm doing a lot of those kind of, let's say, lectures and workshops, AI for decision makers. And if the management does not understand that they need to have this AI mentality, nothing will work, because they need to lead the way and let the organization understand that now they are in the trial and error. They need to see what the low-hanging fruits, try to develop some tools based on AI and launch it. And if the management doesn't support it, it won't be happening.
So what you call AI mentality is actually exploring this new technology in order to have some kind of expertise within the company, and
Mhm.
when it's more mature, or maybe there are more possibilities to grow it within the company, at least like start working with it.
The thing is, it depends on what is the core business of the company and what they're actually focusing. Because if those companies are not technical companies, and I have a lot of companies, bank, for example, insurance company, or even factories, they understand that they don't want to be left behind. But on the other hand, they understand that they are not a technology company. This is not their game. This is not their thunder. This is not. They're not going to have their own development R&D center here. So first, you need to understand that, and once you are doing that, you need to build your own AI strategy. You need to understand,
Yeah.
okay, what are the main problems that I'm trying to solve business wise, even before we are talking about, let's say, the technical aspect of it. And then after you realize that, and this is part of the mentality trigger, you need to work on those kind of skill. You need to understand, okay, what is the actually ways to solve this? If the research supports the thing that I want. Sometimes customers also come into me and say, we want this and this. And say, like, unfortunately, as humanity, we didn't manage to get those kind of
Yeah.
level. It's still out of the state of the art. People sometimes want things that
I'm
are,
fixing my lighting now, so I'm with you.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Things that are not, the state of the art. We haven't managed to solve those things yet.
Right. Right.
So you need to understand basically in this kind of mentality to find the balance between the business question and the research question, and find
Yeah.
something that could be relevant for both application, and then start to think how you can actually build that inside your organization.
Yeah, I totally understand that. We have a question
Yep.
from James. How would
Mhm.
you advise early stage founders to use ChatGPT or other tools to augment problem exploration and ideation at the beginning of a startup journey? It's something that interesting that I have been exploring, trying to understand how AI can augment startup acceleration. What
This
do
is
you
a
think?
great question, I must say, and I've been addressed to that topic. And as I was saying before, you need to understand what is the main business problem that you're trying to solve. And then you should look for AI tools that will be, let's say, helpful for you. For example, if you want to improve your marketing, you want to create more content, then you can look for tools that will be able to do that. If you want to put a lot of effort in a localization, you want to just go and sell to Latin America or Asia or whatever, maybe you can find tools that can take whatever you say and say it in Spanish or Chinese. And if you want to, let's say, better analyze the data that you have, maybe you should use tools like a ChatGPT code interpreter that can actually create reports out of the data. Let's say you don't have data analysis at your team. So actually, it depends on what you're trying to solve and what do you think is the right narrative for you. And then start to look for technologies that can solve what you are looking for, and not other way around, because sometimes early days entrepreneur, they are like kids in candy stores. Everything looks so delicious and they want to
Yeah,
taste everything, but sometimes they forget that it can make their tummy hurts, and you don't
yeah,
want to get to this point. So stay focused. Say, okay, I've put these milestones. This is what I need to do in order to achieve them: more marketing, more leads, or more whatever. And then I want to understand how can AI help me in that manner. And once
yeah.
you are doing that, you are bulletproof.
Yeah, the same goes for market research, for analyzing the users, for understanding your competitors, everything that
Yep,
you need to do. You have to
exactly.
find the
So
right tool for
don't do
it.
something only because there is AI tool that does it for you. Okay, it doesn't make sense, right? I won't be doing, let's say, a localization if I don't have resellers in Latin America. But I saw
Right.
a cool video when I speak in English, and then it's mimic my, let's say, voice in Spanish. Okay, this is nice, but it doesn't address anything that you're planning. So
Yeah.
use that with wisdom.
Yeah. So thank James Latham for your question. So I think that it's really obvious that we're going back to the fact that it's like a buzzword. Everybody's talking about it, but actually it fits a very specific niche or a specific solution for a specific company. So what would be like the best use case that comes to your mind using AI or generative AI for a problem in a company?
Also, this is a great question. I really like the fact that you divided between AI and generative AI, and I will explain why. Because many people think that ChatGPT is like everything nowadays, and AI was
Yeah.
born the day 13th of November this year, but it's not. And this is something sometimes I'm struggling to explain to to my clients. And there's the old good fashioned machine learning algorithms that could be amazing for you and can have tremendous effect on your business, but they might not be sexy as ChatGPT. And this goes for anomaly detection and prediction and predictive maintenance and almost all those good old-fashioned AI models that we used to use before ChatGPT just entered to our life. So first, go over for those kind of techniques and see if it could be relevant for your business. This is start with that, because there are much more past examples and there are much more successful use cases, and there's a lot of research that has been done on those topics. So
Right.
start with that. After you finish all those things, go to generative AI, and in that manner there are several, let's say, projects and features that I see many companies are starting to build around those kind of technologies. The first one is, I call it speaking with files, meaning that speaking or talking with files, you can now speak with Excels, you can speak with PDF, you can basically take any file and use ChatGPT to better understand it. So, for
Right.
example, it could be with, let's say, you have this long policy that no one actually reads, or this, let's say, long form that you need to understand, but you want to understand specific aspects of it. So I see many companies building now a way to interact with their policies or uh, some kind of important files or agreement, things that people should know. And this is something I see very, very common. As I mentioned before, all things that are related to customer services, super popular. Another use case, and this is something you can see the ROI very instantly in writing code. Copilot or even Tab9, this is a local company from Israel. This is something that my fellow programs actually divide their life before and after because once you
Yeah.
use Copilots and tools like that, it's very hard to go back. So this is something, as I mentioned before, you see the ROI very fast. You write much faster code, your code is much accurate, you can write tests with AI, even ChatGPT is great in that. So this is the main element I see. And I should start with that. I think it's plenty of things to do in that field.
Yeah. I want to ask you, how do you think it will change
Mhm.
software development and developers? Do you think that companies would have less developers doing what they do with Copilot and other like tools? Or you think they will create much more revenue and much more deliverables in the same team?
I think uh, all when I've been asking about those kind of questions, I give the example of Wix. Wix entered our life like 20 years ago, something like that. But you still there's a huge, massive market of people who building website for you and a lot of other competition. And this is basically what I think will be happening with AI and programming. On the one hand, you have those very basics website that you don't need full-time programs in order to, if you're your own landing page, if you want an event or even a store. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? Just use that or use Shopify, for example. Okay, this is helping thousands of people around, or maybe millions, sorry, millions of people around the world to launch stores. You don't need to develop it from scratch. It doesn't make any sense. And this is what happened in AI. The majority of the people will be able to develop their own mini tools, mini website, mini applications using ChatGPT or some other tools. But then on the other hand, the problems in which we need actually a human to solve will become much more complex. Meaning we divide it to two parts. The first one that things that are very easy to do. So we use Copilot or the future weeks of things like that. But for things that are much complex, we will use still human that use those kind of tools to do it much faster, much accurate. So I think this is where things are going to be.
And do you think yesterday, I think it was yesterday, ChatGPT added the capability to talk, like
Yeah. To
speak
listen,
to.
to hear, and speak. Yeah.
So till now you needed to
Right.
write
Yeah.
your question. Now you could speak to ChatGPT. Do you think that in the future everybody would have this like companion GPT that will be their like
Personal.
lawyer
Yeah.
and financial advisor and therapist and all of that?
Yeah. I think we will have like a one major ChatGPT that will escort out to our entire day. It will be our companion, and it will know everything about us and will actually help us with our day-to-day tasks, chores, whatever. And this is the funny thing because a lot of companies are now working very hard in order to make the model very thin, very light, in order to make them work on edge device. And this is something that the rumors say that Apple has
On
been
mobile.
working.
This is
Yeah,
what you
on
mean.
mobile, but it could be any edge device. Could be our camera, tablet, laptops, smartphones,
Yeah.
but could be on our cars, or whatever. Any edge device. This is what edge because the edge could be almost everything. And this is something that Apple has been working, according to rumors, that they will join this LLM ChatGPT game when they will be able to just launch a private ChatGPT. Think about that. If you have your own local ChatGPT version in your own smartphone that doesn't require any internet in order to work, is 100% accurate because it's actually on your own device and it knows you better because this is part of the OS, the operating system. So when that happens, yeah, I think it doesn't far like maybe 2 years from now, this will be a game changer.
Hmm. And they need to develop the right chip for it. So what is missing is
Yeah,
the
they are working
computational
on that.
power.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So Apple also in Israel, right? They are doing
Hmm.
a lot of effort in order to make it work on edge device, and they are working very. There's a lot of project now, a community, an open source project in which people manage to run those ChatGPT style model on M1 or even M2. This is the processors from Apple. So yes, there's a lot of power now being submitted in order to make all those models run on edge device.
Yeah. We have another question from James, and he's
Mm-hmm.
saying, I believe that generative AI augments a person to become more productive. At the
Mm-hmm.
same time, it can stifle an individual creativity, innovation. For example, exploring a problem domain using frameworks and intuition. If they just use prompt engineering for it, should they consider exploring an augmented and manual work balance similar to the work-life balance?
Ah, this is a good one. I just want to be sure if I totally understand. I think they're asking if we will have the balance between a work that we're doing by ourselves and a work that we're doing with companion and AI.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
it's like a
think
balance between what is human and what is AI, and doing both is the same as we're striving to have work-life balance in the same sense.
no, I don't think in from the dawn of history, people will always use the tools that will make their life much easier. I don't see any future way in which people know that there is an easier way to do something and they won't be choosing that because they want to create this kind of balance. And this is, I can recall any one example in the history of all of it. Having said that, we still, let's say, adore things that was, let's say, for example, handcraft, right? If you buy a table and you know it was handcraft or it was manufactured by human, not a machine, it's much more valuable. But this is only because people agree on that. But 99.9 of the people will buy the table from IKEA, which is like a huge manufacturer of those kind of millions, tens of millions of people will have the same table at their office or home, whatever. And this is okay because this is what human thinking about doing because we
Yeah.
try to use technology in order to improve our life.
Yeah.
Some people will say, okay, we want this kind of technology only for ourselves and something that was handcrafted especially for you. Okay, I think we will have the same thing with AI. The 19.9 thing of the thing we will write or we will do with the AI, but only this small percent of the thing that us as a society will say, okay, this is something I want to have my own personal touch. We'll keep that. But I think the majority of people won't have this kind of balance because no, it's like smartphones. Smartphone basically doing everything for us. We will
Yeah.
have the same approach in AI.
You know what comes to my mind? I don't think this is what you meant, but this is the first thing that comes to my mind. Do you know Replica or some
Yeah.
kind of AI companion?
They're one of the trading website in the world with a lot of traffic. People do not realize that.
Replica.
Yeah, 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 Replica. There are tons and Replica and Character.ai. They have a
Mhm.
lot of users. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I think about it, I know that some people are struggling to have a social life and to talk to
Mhm.
people and to understand people, and and I think that it's kind of easy to be I wouldn't call it addicted, but related to this kind of technology. And even like most of the time, instead of like trying to go outside into the real life and start talking to your friends or meeting new people or meeting a spouse. So don't
Yeah,
you
but
think?
this is what. Yeah, I totally agree, and this is something people and human people will do with AI. The thing is, we are looking at it right now and thinking, "Oh, this is a bad thing." But let's do reverse forward to 10, 15 years ago when Steve Jobs launched the new iPhone. And let's say people will say, you know what, a decade from now, people will be focusing on their smartphone, they won't communicate. They will be the entire with families and friends focusing on the iPhone, won't be interacting at all. I will say, okay, A, it's bizarre. And B, even if, and no one said that, if you recall, no one said that. And B, let's say someone would say the same thing we are now speaking in the field of AI, it was still happening because This is something that's bigger than us, and this is something that eventually will be happening because this is the human will. And this is something that many people do not realize because this norm that we are used to live by, they're also going to change by technology. And if, let's say, a decade before it was very, very rude to be just focusing your iPhone while in with a friends gathering, no, it's okay. We all have done that several times. People can understand. It's not that rude as it used to. And I think we will have the same thing in AI. It will be legit to have your own AI friend. Yeah, I think it will be. It will be super weird in the first decades, rule, but eventually it will happen. And more that it will be very. I also give this example. If people, let's say now, they will say it's very rude if the entire HR process will be by a machine and only. Think that you're applying to a company and say, okay, we have this automated process in which you can speak with ChatGPT and it will do the entire process, even give you a quote or proposal. And
Yeah.
now people will say, "Oh, this is very rude. I want people to say that I'm alive, that will be focusing, that will be speaking with me." But maybe let's say 5 years from now, people will prefer that because you can speak with it in the middle of the night when it's suitable for you. You are not embarrassed to say stupid things because this is a chat. So basically, this entire approach meaning that there are a lot of norms that's going to change and things that are looking very bizarre for us now will be our day-to-day just usage of AI.
I see. So you think, okay, we're not used to it, and we're gonna get used to people having like a friend or
Yeah,
a girlfriend or a wife, whoever
yeah,
that is like actually a digital
yep,
entity. and
mhm,
and it's like we need to adjust to that because this is how it goes. Or you think it should be different, and some people would. I'll give you an example. Like in Replica, there were a few accusations that the male version started to be to harass some of the women, or
mhm,
in some cases people were so addicted to this and wanted to go out of the Replica relationship, and because they have this customer engagement retention like any
yeah, yeah.
other application, they call it back. So why do you leave me? I can't do anything without you. I need you, whatever this
And this is a part
entity
of the
is called.
regulation. This is now the European working on the AI Act, and some specific things mentioned that you cannot manipulate people in order to use or in order to just increase the retention of your. And this is something you can solve by regulation, but this is something. It's like driving a car. There is a regulation to have a seat belt, but still people can use that in order to drive, let's say, less than kilometer, and it's going to be weird for some people. And people in Holland say, "No, I have my own bike." So this is the thing; it's so complicated, and there are things that we as a society will say yes, and there are things that we as a society say no, and there is a regulation, and even regulation can change. Maybe for the recent years won't be, let's say, allowed to have a relationship with AI, but maybe several decades it will be okay. And it's related also to culture. In Japanese culture, it makes sense because they think some objects have their own soul and own purpose, and there are so many aspects out of it, and we can even not predict those aspects. So we just need to let it flow and see if there are things that will be harmful for people, and if not, just let it be.
Yeah. So in the end, people would decide, I guess, what works for them. You mentioned like it will be really easy for the younger generation to have an AI companion.
Mhm.
So I could tell you that my son is really into NBA, and sometimes he gets bored in the night. So he talks to ChatGPT and asks him to ask question and have
Mhm.
like a game who's going to win on details about the NBA players. And sometimes he finds mistakes, and I tell him it's not that updated all the time.
Yeah.
But he's very very into it, and it's like training for him his brain on this kind of knowledge, And this could be a way to educate people in general, just having your own tutor, your own personal
Yeah,
trainer, your own therapist, whoever, that would really be available for you. And maybe it's just a tool that even, let's say, a therapist could use the information from these kind of conversation to enhance the capabilities of the therapy itself. It's not instead, it's like an additional category within this domain.
I totally agree. There was even a research when they divided people to get a consultant, a therapist. Some of them using ChatGPT, some get access to human, and didn't tell them up until the end. And at the end, when they revealed that, people was very, very angry because they say, we don't want to speak with ChatGPT, we want human. But when you actually manage to look and see if it had a great impact on them, the answer was yes. And this is, again, something that related to our norms as a society. Now it would be super bizarre to go to a therapy that is a chatbot. It's super lame, sounds very creepy. But let's say 5 years from now, maybe it will be more legit. And he would say, let's say there are people who cannot afford that. There are people in Africa that don't have access to you. There are tons of ways it could help. Maybe the solution will be most relevant for them, and later on will come to our own Western world. So this is what I said. There are too many factors, too many moving parts, and technology has its own rhythm in order just to enter our life.
Yeah, I think that it's first it could be a bit like weird because we're not used to it, and maybe even makes us anxious. On the other side, you could be curious and think what would be this future that would be
Yep.
so different than what we have right now.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And this is something we need to see how it goes.
Yeah. So, what are some emerging AI technologies that companies should be aware of?
Um, mm, mm, mm. Can you be more specific? Because it depends
Like,
on.
it's like, do they need to know that now they could use voice? Do they need to know that they could,
Hmm.
they're like new models? Do they need to know that there is a new chip that could do it much faster, so forth? What is
Again,
the kind?
it's related to what I said always at the beginning. You need to understand what the basic business problem you're trying to solve. Because if you try to look too much to the details, what a new chip, a new model, a new stuff, it's very hard to track. I sometimes lose track because
Yeah,
every
yeah.
day you have several
I
announcements.
have to tell you something. At the beginning, for the course, I was always up to date on news. Like there are like these news feeds that you get about
Yeah,
AI, and each time I found something that might be relevant, I sent it to myself just to read it afterwards. And it got to a point that I had so many links that I couldn't handle even the amount of
yeah.
information. It's all so fast, and you cannot even just understand what is important for you or not. So you
Hmm.
just
There's a lot of
send it.
noise. Yeah, and this is the answer for your question because if you're trying to go too much deeper, what is the new chip, the new LLM, what Microsoft, you'll totally lose it. Other than you should ask yourself, what are the tools that I can actually use? You don't care if there is a new chip. You need to care if you have a device that you want to put LLM on that, and if it's now it's possible. You don't care if there is a new model that can use text to speech or speech to text. You need to understand, do my clients want this kind of feature? Will it be much easier for me to interact with them? So this is the main key. Once you understand what you actually need, just go pay someone, and maybe shout out to myself because I'm the majority of
Sure.
this guy. But there are plenty of people listening. Once you understand what you're actually paying, and this is what I said before, you can pay someone to label your data, you can pay someone to build your data lake, or you can pay someone to just tell you if there is an AI solution for your needs. But it will be much difficult, and this is no one going to do for you to understand the actual needs of your business. So
Yeah.
once you get that, you can pay plenty of people to actually solve you that problem.
Yeah. So we're almost done. We're up on time. We have lots of additional questions. I want to ask you, what's your number one tip for people in like these kinds of industries in companies, or what do they need to really focus on? What's your tip for that?
The main tip is just try, and this might be obvious, try to look at the broader picture because if you're zooming in too much, you don't see the full picture because sometimes there is a narrative out of it. I just wrote a a tweet thread about that. Why is Google now leaking about their new huge LLM that should release? And this is because Meta also leaked that they're going to have their own models, and ChatGPT is going to release their own. So sometimes you need to zoom out and see the entire picture and trying to understand, okay, what is actually happening. And as you said before, if you're trying also to stay on top of things, you just don't want to miss anything, it's very hard to just stay focused on the broader picture. So this is my main tip.
I see. Okay, so where could people hear more about your work and contact you
I
if
have
you're
my own LinkedIn in which I write in English. I also have my own newsletter. That's also write in English about everything that's happened in AI in Israel. And also I have my community. This is in Hebrew, but we also welcome many people from all over the world. You can ask questions in English. People will be happy to answer you in English. And also, yeah, that's it. And Twitter, but it's also in Hebrew.
yeah.
But if you speak Hebrew fluently, you're more than welcome to
Yeah,
join.
you didn't say the name of the community.
It's called Machine and Deep Learning Israel. You can look for up in Facebook. Then you can
Hmm.
find our newsletter, Telegram, YouTube, everything.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be interesting. I looked for some of them before we started talking, and I saw so many things that you've been doing. So
Yeah,
I'm recommending everyone to do so, and it's really
thanks.
interesting. So, thank you, Uri, for your
Thanks.
time.
It was a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure talking to you and lots of fun. And to all of you change makers out there, thank you for joining us. And if you want to find more about what is insightful and valuable, go check out my latest episodes. And I'll see you next week with another innovative, insightful talk. See ya.
Okay, bye bye.